Oh, hey guys, this is Peckernet Ryan D-Bar. Someone asked me if I had a certain document, and I said, I think I do. I know I did at one point. Let me look for it. I didn't find it, but I did come across a document on the Waldo Hotel. I don't know how I came into possession of this document. Apparently, I've had it for 7 or 8 years. It makes a real good follow-up to my previous video, and we're going to look at it right now. It's a 2-page document, but I'm going to start out with the drawing of the original proposal for Jackson Square, or the parking garage there. This was put together by Vandalia Heritage Foundation in conjunction with Preservation Alliance of West Virginia. You can see it's only maybe 70% of the footprint of the current Jackson Square. And yet, look down here in the bottom. Number of parking spaces, 512. Now, in this area right here, the Folios had a 70-space parking lot, so it would have only been an increase of 440 spaces downtown. That's still pretty big. What we actually got was all of this area demolished for a gain of 60 more spaces. Somehow, they removed all of this space and only got 60 spaces out of it. But let's keep going on the original proposal here. It would have created a line of 3-story buildings except right here, which is a 2-story building. The Schaefers owned these buildings, and I remember Henderson Barbershop being in there. I was told at one point there was a gay bar in there. This is part of a vice district, 50 years ago, and going back earlier than that. This building would be renovated. I believe it would be renovated at Schaefer's own expense unless there was some other government grant that they were going to get. This building here was only 1 story. They were going to add 2 stories onto it. And they were going to get the benefit of direct access into this building from the parking garage on each floor. This area was part of the flat lot, surface level lot that existed, and the proposal was to build a new 3-story building there. These 2 buildings would have been about 5,000 square feet per floor. This was 6,500. So that's like a total of 50,000 square feet of office space. And then Mr. Folio didn't want this building to remain. He had just purchased a building right in this area, where my mother's daughter is now, off the estate of Cyrus Vance Sr., who died the previous year. He wanted a walkway out to Pike Street so that people could get from here to the rear of his building. Not a hard thing to do. Take out 2 or 3 of these spaces on the first floor. Done. For some reason, the city didn't want to do that, and they lied to Mr. Folio. But let's move on. The other page is a list of the costs and the revenues for this original proposal. About $4.4 million from the state. I'm not sure what match money T21 means, but it was another $500,000. And then the city would have to kick in $3.71 million. This adds up to 20% of the total, and this would be 80%. So basically a 20% match to qualify for the grant. They're going to buy property out the Folios for $220, Lacaria for $172. Down here you have Swagger, which I think refers to WYK. I'm not sure what H&K was. I'm going to assume that this was some sort of architecture firm specializing in historic preservation, and that they were going to use Swagger as the local partner. That never happened. Swagger got the money. Actual construction cost of the parking garage, $2.4 million. $300,000 engineering fees. Demolition costs of $300,000. They ended up spending way more than that because they demolished 2 additional buildings. A streetscape along Pike and Traders Alley was another $500,000. You know, you have those utilities, power lines in the back of Traders Alley that probably would have been buried. You could have created a nice pedestrian walk or a brick street in there. And then the Pike Street facade, $520,000. It wasn't going to look like a parking garage on the outside. It was going to be bricked. It was going to look like an office building from the outside. Notice this. Schaefer Enterprises was getting $0. They were giving up, if you remember, they were giving up some buildings. Let's look again. Right in here was the Manhattan building and the former Evans Hotel. And the Schaefers, meaning Schaefer Enterprises, was just going to give it to the city without asking for any money. Why would they do that? Well, for one thing, I know that one of these buildings was in pretty bad shape. I had been in it, and it was in bad shape. It was just going to cost too much for them to maintain it. They were paying property taxes on property that wasn't really that nice. I think the other building was a lot nicer, but they still paying property tax on it in a downtown that was starting to really struggle. But if the city paid the demolition costs and put this parking garage in here, it would make these 2 buildings a lot more marketable. So I guess they thought it was worth it. It makes a lot of sense to me. You know, Traders Alley, Traders Avenue, you call it, it's not a very pleasant place to walk, partially because you've got this huge parking facility right here. But you would have had a line of 3-story buildings. It would have been a pretty cool place. Of course, you know what happened. They came in here and bought 2 extra buildings, demolished them, and didn't demolish the building they said they were going to demolish. The story doesn't end there. I'll show you a third document that I looked up, the Harrison County Clerk website. So sometime between November of 2003, when the city got the $4.3 million from the state of West Virginia, and the summer of 2004, they had completely changed the plans on everything. They had lied to Mr. Folio and ended up paying him more money to settle. And they took property along Traders Alley from Schaefer Enterprises that was not part of the original plan. Those 2 buildings that I was talking about that the Schaefers were going to improve, the city instead paid to demolish them and offered the Schaefers $536,000. The Schaefers weren't content with that. That wasn't part of the deal. They didn't think it was enough money for everything they were giving up. And Judge Matish ordered that the respondent, Schaefer Enterprises, be given $825,000. So when you add everything up, they're already way over $1 million over budget. And that's part of the reason why we don't have a garage. We have a flat lot. I want to remind you that although Vandalia drew up the plans, the money was actually given to the city. As the city that was taking these buildings by eminent domain, it was the city that lied to Mr. Folio. And somehow it all gets spun around because I guess nobody has ever just laid out the facts until now in a way that can be proven. That's enough. I'll holler at you later.